Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is 𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗀 and I am an author of fantasy. I write epic fantasy and romantic fantasy, and unfortunately I am super sick this week, so there's not a lot of writing happening. So I thought it would be fun to share a project that I recently did. It started as something I was just making for myself, but several people asked me for it when they saw the work in progress shared on Instagram. So I ended up making it into a free gift for my email newsletter subscribers. And this is a printable reading journal. I had seen a lot of reading journals and reading logs that were like hardcover, like really fancy hardbound books that I liked them, but I couldn't justify the cost, especially when I have a lot of tools to make things like this on my own at home. So I started by creating the pages that I wanted in InDesign, and I printed them with my Epson EcoTank printer. And then because I wanted the cover to be a little bit fancy, I ended up getting out my Silhouette Cameo, and I have a foil quill which uses heat transfer foil. And this let me add metallic text to the front of a piece of scrapbooking paper that I chose to be the cover of my reading journal. The foil has to be held on with washi tape to keep it from moving around while the foil quill is working. This was just like a little kit that I picked up super cheap off of eBay, and I love it for little projects like this. The font that I ended up using is actually the same one that I used on the new covers for my Snake's Blood Saga Epic Fantasy series. I really liked this typeface, and I thought it would make kind of like a nice reference to, the books that I wrote. I thought it was kind of an interesting reference, and it also kind of brands my stuff together. At this point in time, the printable file that I've created doesn't have any kind of cover, so I thought it might be fun to share how I made mine. And really, it was just scrapbooking paper that I liked, some pieces that I had left over from another project that I used my foil quill on to add the text, and then ran through a laminator to protect the cover. At some point, I think it might be neat to make some printable covers that people can use, and then I can make them from artwork for my various books, just as a little something extra for my readers. I'm sorry for how hoarse I am too. I have influenza, and I have been running a fever and coughing for like 5 days straight, and it's miserable. Hopefully I'll be recovering soon. I have so much writing that I need to do. So because as usual, I have to be extra, I ended up using a notebook punch for this rather than like a regular 3-ring hole punch or anything like that, and putting it in a binder, even though that was what I originally designed it for, was using it with just like a 3-ring binder. I have so many A5 planner covers, and they're really well suited to things like this. But I have this notebook punch, and this one is made for comb binding rather than spiral binding. And it is a 3-1 pitch, which means for every inch of paper, it makes 3 square holes. There's no reason that you can't use this with a spiral binding if you can find 1-3 pitch spirals, and I could not, so I ended up designing a coil maker with my 3D printer. And this way I can use aluminum wire. This was like a really pretty craft wire that I found that sort of matched my aesthetic. And so I just have this little coil making tool that I designed, so I can just wrap it around there, and then it's pretty much good to go. I only made it a few inches tall because I planned on mostly making smaller notebooks. But when I reach the end of my coil, I can just kind of unscrew it from the top and keep going indefinitely, so it doesn't really need to be any longer than this. Once it gets longer than this, it also gets a lot harder to get it out of the coil because there's so much more friction. But of course, you can just buy coils off Amazon. And then it's just a matter of starting the end and twisting the coil so that it goes through all the little holes. It's kind of hard to keep the covers lined up with the blank pages because the covers have the laminate on them, so they don't sit flush at the bottom. So I struggled a little bit at first, but once I got it going, then it was a lot easier. I ended up making the coil a little bit longer than my pages so that I would have space to use some pliers to twist the ends and keep it from coming undone. I probably could have made a little bit bigger of a coil because the pages stick on this one a little bit, but on the whole it's not too bad. Once I knew it all worked as I intended and planned and I was happy with the design, I set up a secret page for newsletter subscribers on my website. It's only accessible if you get the password from subscribing to my newsletter. And it's just got like a little preview image there and some information on what it is. And then when people click on it, it takes them to the printable PDF version of it. And the way this is set up, you can print as many copies of each individual page as you might need for your book. I use a lot more of the like little quick review things rather than the full long review pages, so I set it up with a lot more of those. And then at the very end, there is a section for abandoned books because we all have things that we start and, they just don't really spark with us, so we end up putting them on the DNF pile. But here's a quick flip through of what it looks like. I have really enjoyed using this for my reading across the past several months. I'm trying to make sure I don't show any of my notes or reviews here. There's always a change that happens when you go from being just an avid reader to being a writer. I still share the books that I really enjoy, but if I have negative feelings about a book or more critical feelings about a book, I tend to keep those to myself. I don't want to be seen as the kind of author that tears down the work of others. So yeah, this was a fun little project for myself, but also for my readers to get a little bonus. I guess if you like it, you're welcome to also sign up for my email newsletter, and take care, and I'll see you next time.